All right, let's call to order the Palm Beach County Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board for Wednesday, February 26th, 2025. Are we going to have anyone virtually once I start digging in? I wasn't quite aware.
No.
Okay, all right. So if you do need any virtual assistance, please take a look at the agenda for information. If you would all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we please call the roll to establish a quorum?
At this time, I'm only asking those board members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. I want to remind you to unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. Alternates, please also state your name if you are attending on behalf of a board representative. Millery Senate. Nicole Smith. Here. Windang. Mary Elisa Amador. Angela Choice. Here. Robert Goodman is excused. Natasha, thank you. James Green.
He'll be right back. He's here.
Marlene Ramnon. Here. Laura Schultz is absent. Elizabeth Clark. Isis Williams. Michael Corbett.
Here.
Madalena Cruz. Takesha Saffold is absent. Chelsea Reed.
Here.
Lou Ferry.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And we don't have anyone joining us remotely at all. So
No,
we'll
Madam Chair.
go forward on that. All right. Do we have any modifications to our agenda today?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. And does anyone have any changes for our minutes or otherwise? If not, I'd like to take a motion in a second to approve our minutes. Oh, did I skip something? Nope. Okay. So motion in a second to approve our minutes. When you make the motion, if you'd be so kind as to announce your last name when you make the motion. Oh, you have to, sorry, push it 2 times. Oh, push it. Never mind.
Wait.
Okay.
They seem to be behaving pretty well today. No, we'll get you a new microphone.
All right. So someone else, sorry. Thank you for trying. Could someone else could please make a motion in a second? So you would make a motion. You could state your last name and state that you would like to make a motion to approve the minutes for November 20th of 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Nicole Smith.
Beautiful. All right. So that was Nicole Smith. And then I'm asking for a second, please, to second the motion. Any board member can second the motion.
I'll make
I'll
a
second.
second. Michael
Oh.
Corbett.
Okay, got it. Great. Michael Corbett's for a second. Excellent. All in favor? Everyone says aye or nay? Aye.
Aye.
We have none in favor. Motion passes unanimously. So we'll move, thank you guys, right along to the general public comments. Instructions on how to provide public comments are included in the agenda. Do we have any that we've received?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, no worries. And do we have any comments from the members before we dig in? Or the chair? Chair has nothing to say either. All right, so we'll move right along. Next up, we have our LCB liaison report. So I'm going to invite Brian Ruscher, our TPA TPA Deputy Director of Multimodal, to review the report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Brian Ruscher, Deputy Director of Multimodal. Happy to present the liaison report for February 2025. A little light, but wanted to run through some of the fun transportation things that are coming up that maybe you wouldn't see necessarily otherwise. So first and foremost, if you're starting to think about your conferences this year, the Florida Public Transit Association Conference is going to be hosted on September 2nd to the 4th in St. Petersburg, Florida. We're not sure yet if that's going to be a shared conference, but with the CTD and the FPTA, but we'll keep you posted on that. If we hear updates about it in our and in between now and our May meeting, we'll give you a note. Florida Bicycle Month is celebrated in the month of March. So for those of you who are unaware, the state of Florida designates Florida Bicycle Month early when the rest of the country is still frozen. We are in the prime time of bike weather for Florida. So please consider If you're at the local agency that has a governing board or otherwise body, you can pass a proclamation. We have templates for you to use. You can join us on our TPA bicycle ride on March 21st, which starts and ends here at the TPA. And we also have a safety webinar planned for March 17th, where we'll go over safety and law refreshers for those who maybe are a little rusty on walking and biking laws, and then also go over some of the new tech that's available to bicycles as well. And of course, you can also host your own event if you so choose. Lastly, for this slide is the 2055 Florida Transportation Plan. If you're not aware, every agency that has a major role in transportation system generally keeps a long-range plan. So this is Florida's opportunity to create a system of roadway networks and otherwise envisioned how we're going to move about into the future in 30 years. So they have the 2055 effort underway now, and a goals and objectives surveys available at floridaftp.com. Next slide, please. The TPA Governing Board meeting is going to be held on Thursday, March 20th at 9:30 a.m. So if you're so inclined to listen into that Governing Board meeting, it should be a nice one with a lot of information that will go over some of these things in more detail. And then, of course, if you have any ongoing transportation issues, anything related to the Transportation Disadvantaged Program or otherwise, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can schedule directly online with through my Calendly link. So thank you. That's all, Chair.
All right, thank you. Does the board have any questions or comments? All right, we need to reflect on the agenda that Mallory Sennett's joined us. Good afternoon. Let's go ahead and, sorry. We do not have any action items today, so we'll move right into our information items. We're going to go right to the CTC evaluation response. And so again, Brian, you're up. If you could present on this item, please.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to stand for this one. It's a little bit longer of a presentation. I'm swear I'm not accompanied by music. The designated conference or pre-meeting jam is Dave Matthews, so just be aware. But here today to present the fiscal year 2025 community transportation evaluation. So we, every year through our transportation disadvantage grant, we are responsible for evaluating the community transportation coordinator, which of course is Palm Tran Connection. So we are today kicking off that effort with Palm Tran Connection. We have a pretty good calendar put together for you all, including some things that we've already prearranged with Lou to make sure that you all are getting a real taste of how the TD system works, refresher on how we're going to go about organizing the CTC evaluation, and then some data from last year's results and our new metrics that we're going to try to track this year. So bear with me as we dive in. As I'd said before, we're responsible for annually evaluating the transportation coordinator. We are responsible for surveying riders / beneficiaries of the program, purchases of the service, and contractors. So in addition to all the fun stuff that you all get to do, the observation rides, the calling of the paratransit riders, the surveying of folks, we as staff also go through and we go look at vehicles. We interact with the drivers and operators of the vehicles. We have a whole workbook that we fill out. And this all occurs between February 26th and June 1st. We present our findings and recommendations to LCB, which would normally be at our May meeting, but of course, we are going to have to reschedule that to June 18th, which is, we'll talk about a little bit later. So that's just kind of an overview. The key thing that we as staff have to work on is first and foremost, providing support to the local coordinating board and making sure that you have everything you need to assist us with your calls, your surveys, your observation rides, and your site visits. So I just went through a few of those things. As I'd mentioned before, we do the workbook, but we need your help with a lot of things, especially calling people who have used Palm Tran Connection services and helping us make sure that if you are an agency or a body that interacts with people who are transportation disadvantaged, that you are distributing the survey that we are going to give to you to those users. We also really need help with observation rides. So the best way to interact with Palm Tran Connection is to go through the service itself. Schedule yourself an observation ride and go and take a ride and see how users are on the system. You frequently get put onto a bus with someone who's taking an everyday trip. But we're not just putting you onto a bus and trying to plant someone there. You're not going to see Lou hiding in the back. You're going to go and you're going to see the system in action. And you frankly, you can go to many different locations. You can use it to take it to a meeting. I think even last year, our vice chair went to one of our committee meetings using the paratransit service. So there's lots of opportunities to take observation rides. We're not particularly, we don't track these things. We generally just try to facilitate you getting on the bus. And then lastly, something that we are doing this year to accompany this effort is also a site visit, which we've arranged with Palm Trend Connection to ensure that you all have access to the site that they operate from. You can see there primarily how they operate on a day-to-day basis. You'll see all the dispatchers. You'll see how they track their data. They have large dashboards, which displays information. So we'll go through each of these items and you'll kind of see what your role in your relationship is going to be. Before we do that, we're going to take a peek back at last year's data. So reading from left to right, you have a couple of data call outs where we try to draw upon some of the successes that we had in 2024. We use that to gauge our 2025 targets. So from top to bottom, we had 70 successful rider interviews by the local coordinating board, 60 customers interviewed when we went out to Palm Trend Connection headquarters, and we spoke to people who are using either Palm Trend Connection or were purchasing discounted fixed route bus passes, and we had a 32% survey completion rate across the emails that we had sent out. So we also try to use these metrics to inform and improve every year. In 2023, we had 9 observation rides by local coordinating board members. In 2024, our target was 15. However, we fell short of that goal. And we did have a good number of completion by local coordinating board members, but we do want to get up that number from 7 to 12 for 2025. So our target is to get generally everybody who frequently and regularly comes to the local coordinating board meetings. Some people fall off and on, but we want to have 12 member rides this year. That's in addition to the staff rides that we take. We have about 2 or 3 staff members that'll take a few rides throughout the entire duration of the CTC evaluation. We also want to have a stronger emphasis on the riders' call completion, so about a 30% completion rate. We generally give each local coordinating board member about 20 people's contact information. So if you can complete about 1/3 of those numbers and get those riders surveyed, that would be really helpful. We've also developed it in a way so that when you call and if you talk to someone and they say, well, I don't have time, you can ask for their email or you can send it to them in another way and we'll count that as a completion. So we're trying to make sure that we're surveying, we're providing the same information, and then we're lastly emailing riders. This is more of the responsibility of the TPA. We do this in coordination with Palm Trend Connection. We get their contacts and their emails. We generally blast it out to everyone. So one of the first questions you can say is, hey, have you taken the survey yet? And if not, if not, great, you can do that survey with them. But if they haven't, then you go through it or you can forward that email to them as well. So we have some pretty strong metrics. We want to have a 30% completion rate for the phone. And then for the email responses, we want to have about a 35% completion for the emails that we'll be sending out over the next few months. And then your role really comes down to those items that we mentioned before. Again, surveying riders, preferably calling. This is still the standard practice that the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage promotes in their workbook. They have a very strong emphasis on direct connection to the riders. This is also an opportunity where if you hear something that is disconcerting, you're a direct connection to them. You can give them the contact information for the Palm Trend Connection hotline to get directly in touch with the service provider in case they have issues. As I'd mentioned before, taking an observation ride, visiting Palm Trend Connection headquarters, and then providing these feedback directly to the TPA. So surveying riders, as I said before, I'm going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into this just because I want to make sure that everyone understands this is a very scripted, it's a very standard process, it's very easy. What we do is we get a list of contact information from Palm Trend Connection. We keep that information very closely and as sensitive as we can. We try to only give you the name and the contact information for the rider. So all you're doing is you're saying, hey, this person took Palm Train Connection in the past year. Here's their phone number. We will give you a script to survey the participants. The script follows along with the survey that's provided online. So it's very easy to, if you even wanted to fill out the survey on their behalf and just enter that instead of using a handwritten document or using a PDF online, that's an option for you. And so you fill that out for them, and then we will tabulate that data. So you send in the responses either in the online form or you give us your PDFs. We tabulate everything. We put it together for you all in a nice bow in May for our evaluation results. For Palm Train Connection, we do find it very successful every year to try to get out to the headquarters. So we've scheduled a date of March 17th at 9 a.m. To have Lou give us a guided tour. Pictured here is him kind of explaining how the dispatchers work. So that's one of the more exciting parts of the program, that you can see them receiving calls, scheduling for the next day, making sure that the calls for the current day are being met. They're addressing safety issues, they're hearing complaints, they're addressing them. So I would strongly encourage you all to put this on your calendar. We can even send a calendar invite if it's the will of the committee. We can provide that to all the members. But we would like for as many people to get involved and engage, especially if you haven't been there before. Please come out to our site visit at the Palm Train Connection headquarters on March 17th. And as I'm going to stress this again, just for the committee's benefit. Yes, and these slides will also be available after the meeting, just for your benefit. Again, the observation rides are really where the meat and potatoes of this committee's work hits the road. We really encourage the local coordinating board to go out and participate and to see how the drivers operate their vehicles, how they interact with the riders and customers that are taking Palm Train Connection. You'll have the opportunity to go kind of along the way to dialysis centers, maybe medical centers, take them to shopping trips, see them coming back from work, potentially school. So there's a lot of good opportunities. Palm Train Connection operates throughout the entire county. And so it's really nice to be able to see how this service operates, see where it's going, and see how it's serving the population that we're planning for currently. We also can furnish you with a list of recommended locations. If you're kind of like, I don't know where to go, I don't know what route I should be taking, like when do I do it? We can give you some suggested locations in Palm Beach County to go to and from that's you probably didn't even realize is maybe down the road from your office. But they'll pick you up, they'll take you there, and they'll bring you back. We facilitate that scheduling through Lou's team at Palm Train Connection. So it's a very simple process. All we need to know is when you want to be picked up, time, drop off, and then your return journey if you so choose to take it. So it's very straightforward. The next steps is to get the survey link and data out to the Palm Train Connections customers. We're going to be sharing a phone list with all of you, as well as opportunities to conduct your observation rides. We do ask that everything that you collect throughout this process and all of the information that help us to get completed and back to the TPA staff by May 16th, so we can tabulate everything and produce that workbook that I talked about. And then we'll be providing our recommendations to you all at the June 18th local coordinating board meeting. And I'm available for questions if you have any. And
All right, real quick, do we have any public comments?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so much. Lou?
I have two things. So for the observation rides, normally we usually pick you up and then make sure you see a pickup and drop off too. So let's say you get picked up here to go back to your office in Boynton. We'll try and also have a pickup or drop off on the way, so you can actually see a customer get picked up and dropped off. So it won't be a straight ride there. We'll try and, but we won't keep you on the bus for 2 hours or anything like that. But it gives you an idea of what the customers are doing as well. All right, so just be mindful of that. But yeah, we could pick you up from your office and take you to lunch, and then on the way back, you can observe a trip and take you somewhere else. Wherever you need to do, we can figure that out. We'll have you use, as Brian said, we'll have you use the app we have or the the web we have to track your trip and just kind of see how it all works. It'll be good. The other thing too is last year and the year before too, sometimes when you do the calls, there's a language barrier sometimes. The problem though is we don't have the ability to ask them that and track that So I would say that maybe we can have kind of something, we'll talk about a strategy beforehand that if you have a problem, you try to reach out to someone, just mark that. And we can possibly either have somebody else call or, just, it's difficult because some people don't, in our eligibility applications, they don't tell us that. We get to know once we
Great
call
reminder.
in, so.
Great reminder. Thank you, Lou.
Excellent. All right, we'll go to Dr. Green, and then after that, we'll go to Committee Member Clark.
Thank you. Thank you very much. James Green, Palm Beach County Community Services. Two questions. First, can we do the observation ride over the weekend? Okay, and so, all right, so we just
Any-
download that, huh?
Any day.
Any day. And is there like a evaluation survey? Is it just open comments, or is there some type of format that we're supposed to report
For the observation ride specifically, or for the?
for the observation ride?
For the observation ride, we do have a survey. It's very simple. If you,
Yeah.
if you see someone that is there, we ask you to do our standard survey that we send out to everyone, but we do have a kind of things to look for on the observation ride that we provide to all the committee members. So you'll see both of those things. And if you can do them both, great, but the goal is to go out and observe in the kind of standardized way that the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage wants everybody to look at in the state. That's their first preference.
Right.
Second preference is to kind of survey and to interact with the riders as a supplemental.
All right, good. And then secondly, is it possible, have we ever like come to these meetings early and did the over the phone survey as a group? Is that something that early or afterwards to get them done? Is that possible?
I mean, I even offered you guys to do it. If you wanted to come to our office, we can give you a phone there to do it. If you wanted to do it there, I mean,
Oh,
we
so
can be
don't use our
creative.
regular
We can
cell
be
phones?
creative.
We do?
You can use your regular cell phones,
Okay.
and on the script, we give you a way to anonymize your number from when you make the call.
I would just say come early and make a couple of calls.
Yeah, we could always do some things like that.
We can, what Lou and I will do is we'll talk and we can see if we can add it on to that March 17th date. Because I think you even mentioned before you have some office space and some phones that you might be able to let us use. So it's a call from Palm Trend Connection, not an anonymous number. And that way it looks like it's someone from the agency that's calling and not just a potential spam call or otherwise. So that might be a good opportunity. Well, Lou and I will talk and see if we can set that up.
And it could also be that your observation ride takes you there and takes you back too. We can
I've
do
done
that.
the tour a number
Yeah,
of
so
times. So.
whatever you guys need to do. We're-
Oh, if you could put your card up if you have a comment, that would be great. And I'm gonna go to the cards that were already up, Ms. Clark, and then Ms. Snot, and then Ms. Ramon.
So you guys touched on two of the questions I already had. I had three. The first one was about the surveys, just to find out if there was a way to find out the client's preferred language. So I totally heard you, Lou. But I like the idea if there is some sort of resource that we can use if we're not able to connect with the client in their preferred language, that would be awesome. Okay, so number two is about the observational rides, exactly what Dr. Green was saying. I was wondering if there was something that we should be looking for when it comes to service, so I
Mhm.
just didn't remember what was given to us in the past, so that's awesome. And then I would love that suggested locations card that you guys mentioned. And then number three was about the site visit. Some of us still have vacancies for our alternate, and I'm wondering if there's an opportunity, if I can invite somebody from my office who could be a possible alternate, can I bring them with me?
Sure. No objection on the
Okay.
TPI side, as long as Palm Trend Connection is good with it, because it's a
Okay.
visitor to their site, and I think it's fine.
Okay, it wouldn't be like, it'd just be one.
And I will say
Good.
we had the survey put onto survey platform, and it has an auto translate service, and was pretty good from what I understand from last year's input. So we're going to try the same again and see if that works. But when you call, there is still that language barrier. So we'll look into that. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Snot.
I remember last year from the survey, you had a question about income, which I was not comfortable asking people.
We're striking that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Ramon.
I have a question.
Oh, you got it, just as long as it's red.
Okay, Marlene Ramnon for Department of Health, Palm Beach County. So I have two questions or maybe comments. So for the survey, the interview, I have done it like twice in 2 years, like 2-year row. And I find that, calling the clients is best to call them after hours. You can get them early. So I try to do them when I get home. I know there's a question with your cell phone, which I use my cell phone, and then I do get called back. But, I mean, anybody can look you up anyway, honestly. But I think it's best after 6, after 7. That's
Gotcha.
when I get more response. I try to do it at work, and I couldn't get anybody. So I did it while I was at home. Most people are, if they ride, and they're going to work or with school or whatever, is in the evening that is best, to get those numbers, at least a third, to complete the survey. My next question would be for the observational rides. So let's say I take the Palm to the office. I have no other. Is it taking you to the office and taking you back to your original destination? Because if I take it to the office, then I wouldn't have a right to get back home or wherever.
We can schedule right home.
Okay.
All
All
Make
right.
sure you get.
And
Okay.
it is a good
Thank you.
opportunity
Thank you.
to kind of trip next to. You can ride the standard fixed route service, maybe one way, and then back. You could take Palm Train Connection if that's an opportunity available to you, or walk, bike. As I said before, Florida Bike Month is in March, so you do have that opportunity as well.
Any other,
Where's she?
any questions from the board at all?
I have one more comment.
Yeah, please.
And so, also, in conjunction with the CTC review, the actual Commission for Transportation Advantage is also having a quality assurance campaign as well. So they hired Thomas Howe Ferguson, an accounting group, to go around, and they also are going to be reviewing for quality assurance for the CTCs as well. And I will tell you that we are the only county or the only CTC for 2 straight years that has not had any findings. So, in the whole state.
Wow.
Very cool.
Award winning again. That's great to hear. Anyone else at all, please? All right, I have a couple things. So,
Great.
so first of all, please definitely send a calendar invite for March 17th, because if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist at
Okay.
all. Even if I take a picture of it and try to remember to do it when I get home. So, and then it would be great if we could get 2 call lists at a time. I know that might be a lot to ask, but sometimes when I call my 20, I'll get a hold of 5. And then I'd love another page to go to the next group of folks that I can get to, and then come back to the other page of
Okay.
20.
Yeah, so an expanded call list.
Yeah, that would be great. And it doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, obviously we're all time constrained. If you're 20 people is all you really have time to give, we understand. But I do want to make sure that, because then I get done with my 20, I'm like, oh, I got 11 of them. So I'd love the opportunity to actually hit the mark. And lastly, so on a point of personal privilege, I get termed out of my office in March of 2026. So this will be the last year that I get to be your chair and do this. So we need to kick butt on this one. I want to go out strong. We did great 2 years ago. We did okay last year. I want to reclaim it. I want to reclaim that excitement that we had. Let's make sure we're inviting our alternates to tour Palm Tran Connect. We all want legacy. I'm thinking about who come and help with this when I'm gone. So let's really make sure that this board continues to have strength and excitement. So let's bring as many people on the tour as we can, if Lou's okay with that, or break it up. And if our goal is 12 rides, we've got to meet that this year. I will drive you there myself and let them drive you back. And then personally, last year, when I did my ride last year, I took our regular Palm Tran to a TPA board meeting and then rode the Connect home for a long time. And it was great. I got to see several pickups and drop-offs, not just 1 or 2. So you can, utilize all kinds of different public transportation, which we're looked at, this board is looked at as the folks who should do it. And then my last thing that I'll say is that my hope is in time, people like our county commission and other people who are decision makers about the budget for this board actually get to do these rides as well. So the more that we experience it, the more we can share what's actually happening, because you'll hear Lou talk about how long it takes for a pickup. But then when you're sitting there in the bus in the back or wherever you're comfortable sitting, I always like to just sit in the back so I stay out of the way. And you can also watch the wheelchair lift go up and down better. But they'll be picking someone up that's in a condominium in a gated community. So the driver has to get out. If there's a problem with the gate, talk to the gate guard, get in there, wait for the person to answer, go to the person's house. That person needs assistance. Then they get, even just picking one person up can take 20 minutes, even if you're being efficient or you get stuck in traffic. There's a lot that can go wrong. And I think that unless you have the subjective experience of it, it's hard to make an objective decision. So the more we share and the more we get out there, the more the ones that we can advocate for everybody. And I think that's all I'll say. That was kind of a lot. Anything else before I close this out? Lou? All righty. That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on to our Palm Tran Connection Service Planning discussion. We're going to have Lou, our Senior Manager of Paratransit, discuss this item.
I'm going to introduce our Executive Director, Ivan Maldonado. He's gonna do the presentation today. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, again. I like to hear about Palm Tran Connection and all of the different things that we're doing, and really excited for the work that we do. We have awesome staff, and they take pride in what they do. So, and I also heard some of the comments about sometimes, the services running late, and some of the situations that we encounter when you provide transportation countywide the way that we do here. So today I want to talk about Connection Plus and some of the alignments or realignments that we are considering. We will be going before the board, County Commission Board, I believe April the 8th, and that is to actually propose some of the enhancements that I will be talking about today. So I'm going to get started. We were here last November and share with you some of the information concerning our ridership trends. I want to point out that if you look at the trends back in 2022, we were providing 660,000 trips. We're expecting to provide 964,000 trips in 2027. That is a major, major increase. Even with the TD transportation, we provided about 91,000 trips in 2022, and we're anticipating to provide 177,000 in 2027. This sounds like a long way out, but we're talking very quickly that's going to happen. So I would simply say that if we continue to provide services in the way that we do, it's cost constraining. It adversely affects service delivery and on-time performance, such as the example that you mentioned earlier. So one of the challenges that we have here is a benefit, but at the same time, it becomes a challenge, is that we treat practically anything that we do with Connection Plus, even outside of a 3/4 mile coverage area, as ADA. So it becomes challenged because then you have to follow the same parameters, the same regulations, the same issues, even when we're transporting people who are ambulatory, who don't have disabilities, but we're taking it to different places. So with that said, I wanted to point out that as per the Americans with Disabilities Act, transit systems are required to provide paratransit, complementary paratransit services to persons with disabilities whose disabilities prevent them from using the fixed route system. So the requirement is that we have to provide up to 3/4 of a mile outside any fixed route and also inside the fixed route network. The picture on the right is what a 3/4 miles actually look like. The picture on the left is what we're doing today. So in comparison to just about every transit system in the nation, we go far and above beyond what transit systems do when it comes to providing ADA transportation. Unfortunately, as I said before, using the same criteria as ADA to provide paratransit services to cover this vast area causes an enormous and I would say enormous. I'm talking about a gigantic demand for resources and an increase of cost needed to maintain schedule adherence, particularly during peak times. And those peak times were our 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., where everyone wants to be picked up practically at the same time and also dropped off at the same time. And we're putting practically every vehicle we have on the fleet out there. So I want you to think about the bottom part of that left picture, say all the way in Boca. And so we're taking someone to North Lake Boulevard, which I think is Palmy's Garden, because I live in that area, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Just think of the distance travel, and not only the distance travel, but the challenge that you have with traffic congestion and trying to maintain a schedule. And the worst thing you can do is to try to get off the road, main freeways, and take any other secondary road. It's not going to happen. So we'll deal with this every single day, practically, from Belle Glades to just about anywhere in the county. So as you can see, we cannot continue to provide services like this without anticipating the need to add additional resources and at one point possibly doubling the number of vehicles and staff that we have in services. So I'm going to be honest, and I try to always be transparent. I have worked in multiple transit systems, and I will tell you that that is not necessarily feasible nor sustainable. And what it does, it actually takes away from other service enhancements that are much needed in this system, such as increasing the frequency on routes. On certain routes, for example, we have routes that are operating every single hour. We have a route that goes to the airport every 2 hours. And I'm just being transparent and open that we need to look at this and continue to provide the same quality of services that we do. Our intent is not to scale back, but to continue to provide the same type of services that we do, but do it in a way that is more efficient. So with that said, we are proposing, or will be proposing to our board that the creation, and I mentioned this the last time I came here, of what we call a Connection Plus program. And then being able to align the ADA service coverage area to up to 3/4 miles of a fixed route service, so we can have different parameters as to how we serve our customers. If you live outside of the 3/4 miles, there will be a different set of parameters. So, and I will talk more about that. I think I went too far, but so as I said, the picture, I think I went too far, did I? No, I think I'm right on track. So the Connection Plus program, what it will do is basically allow us to have more flexibility to schedule and manage trips. We will continue to provide the same type of service. The only difference is that it would allow us to have trip negotiations, probably some restrictions when it comes to pick up or drop of windows, that we could work with clients outside the 3/4 mile area to negotiate a trip that is doable for them to get to their destinations on time. The trips out don't have to be comparable to the fixed route system. And then when it comes to the time to get to that destination, because if you make everything ADA, it means you have to follow that same guideline. If we say we have to get a person to a certain location and you're traveling them practically across the largest county east of, what is it, the Mississippi River, you're going to have some problems with that. So, and I think I did not mean to go this far, but so the alignment of the ADA 3/4 mile and the creation of what we call the Connection Plus program basically will be just the first step of us aligning and fine-tuning PalmTran overall services to better serve citizens in our county. The picture on the right shows what our Accelerate 2031 plan. I'm sure the TPA is well aware of this because it's actually their plan, whose goal is to enhance our fixed route network with higher frequency on main transit corridors and mobility on-demand options like Go Glades in other areas where high-frequency routes might not be suitable. For example, the acreages, Loxahatchee Groves, West Lakes. In May, we will be increasing frequency on the Route 43, which is the one that runs east and west along Okeechobee Boulevard, and it will go from a 20-minute frequency to a 50-minute frequency. And all of this is doable because of our partners with the Florida Department of Transportation who are funding, providing the funding for us to be able to enhance that transportation. They have also agreed to fund future enhancements to have east and west travel. For example, the Route 62 that operates along Lake Worth Boulevard or Road. It will be operating also on a 15-minute frequency. We're also partnering with the city of Boca and FDOT to expand mobility on-demand services. And just like we have done with the BusLink program, and I'm sure you probably have heard about the BusLink program, where we use Uber, taxi cabs to provide share ride options for people to get to their fixed routes and continue their commute beyond the fixed route. We will be doing the same thing throughout the county at different locations where the ends of the line or the beginning of the line start to be able to continue their trips. So those are some of the things that we're looking at doing in the near future. So let's talk a little bit about the Connection ADA guidelines. As I said before, we're providing ADA practically countywide, even for people who don't necessarily need ADA transportation. So the Connection, as we know it right now, will continue to serve ADA paratransit customers inside and up to 3/4 miles on both sides of a fixed ride in the same way that they do today. Nothing would change. However, and I say that however cautiously, since the cost of a single paratransit fare is $3.50, and it has not changed since 2013, and because the cost of a regular fixed route fare is $2, as per ADA, we're able to charge up to twice that fare, which means you can actually charge up to $4. So what we're proposing, after doing a fare equity analysis, to make sure that we do not violate Title VI and to ensure that we do not adversely affect folks that are economically disadvantaged. What we are proposing is an increase of fare of 50 cents that will bring us to $4 for paratransit tips, but understanding that we do have at least 19% of the people that we serve with paratransit services are considered to be economically disadvantaged. We will continue to allow anyone who meets the 100% federal poverty, I'm sorry, I can't speak today, federal poverty guidelines to continue to pay $3.50. And that obviously will lessen that burden on folks that cannot afford that increase. There will be some folks that will be able to do so. With regards to Connection Plus guidelines, the fare will be a similar proposal. But I said the Connection Plus will provide paratransit transportation services to disabled persons who cannot drive or access fixed route transportation, who are traveling outside or through the 3/4 mile area if they're coming from or going outside the 3/4 mile. The Connection Plus will include transportation to senior centers through the Division of Senior Services and will provide transportation to low-income persons and we will provide transportation for transportation disadvantage who meet the low-income criteria, which is partially funded by the Florida Transportation Disadvantage Commission. Services under the Transportation Disadvantage funds, as you all know, are partially funding some of our services, and they are based on funding ability for those services. And obviously, if the trip demands execute funding, which is currently in place right now, we have the following priority order for serving those TD trips, which is number one, critical care trips, medical trips, nutritional trips, employment and daycare, and quality of life trips. Connection Plus paratransit systems will resemble fixed route times and will be negotiated as possible to requested times except when the demand on specific times exceed vehicle availability. TD riders who can travel on fixed routes bus will be asked to use the fixed route system, which is what they're doing right now. But then we have ambulatory riders who can use the fixed route system, but are traveling beyond the 3/4 miles of a fixed route network will be transported to and from the closest bus stop to begin or end their transportation. And then under the TD Bus Pass program, as we have done in the past, we'll continue to do the $15 for 31 trip for those folks who fall under, I believe it's below the 75% poverty guidelines, and then $20 for those folks who are between the 75.1 and 150% of federal poverty guidelines. And again, similar to Connection, we're proposing the same fares. And practically this finishes my presentation. I will be glad to answer any questions that you have. And thank you for this opportunity.
Excellent. All right. Do we have any public comments?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. Do we have any comments from the board? I see one card. I think it's for Dr. Green. All right.
So Ivan, thank you so very much for that information. Is it possible, can we go back to the slide where you were talking about, I'll just refer to them as deregulations. I think it was
I'm going to go back
Connection Plus right there.
right there. Yes.
Yeah, so were all of these practices or policies institutionalized by us, like local, were these local policies, or were these like things that some were mandated by state or federal?
And actually, I'm going to allow Lou to answer that question because he is probably more proficient than I am when it comes to specifics regarding this. So, Lou, if you don't mind.
No problem. So when you call something ADA by a federal guideline, you have restrictions due to that federal guideline.
Right.
So these here are because of we call more trips ADA than we should. So a trip that's right now, like you saw the map with the 3/4 of a mile. So right now a trip, let's say off of Donald Ross in Jupiter, that would not fit into that 3/4 of a mile, but now is considered an ADA trip. We have restrictions on that. All of these restrictions, we can't negotiate. So if someone says, I want to be there at 10 a.m., okay, the ADA allows you to negotiate up to an hour before or an hour after your appointment. However, there's also FTA regulations that say you really can't get somebody to their appointment late. So that means we can only really negotiate down. We're not going to give them a 10:30 for their 10 a.m.
Right.
Okay. So it really limits the amount of time that we can negotiate. One problem we have here is the schools. You guys have heard me talk about schools a lot. So because our ADA core area is so expansive, there's a lot of schools that fit under that. School for Autism, Ernie Els School, things like that. And because we have to treat it like an ADA trip, it does not give us any flexibility to really be efficient.
Yeah. I'm just wondering about some of these, because when you start looking at pricing and things like that, then how do you begin to budget for that? I mean, I guess you could plan and predict, but it seems like the current method allows you to at least understand what the cost per trip will be and, budget accordingly. But with this, it might be
with the new way or this way now?
With what's being recommended here, like it says, eliminate restrictions on fair pricing, or and some of these that do have to do with there was one other one.
Yeah, so okay, I guess the way to think about it is, for a historical purpose, the county was flushed with money back in the day. So they threw money at the program to fix it. But as you throw money at something, you begin to lose your identity. We became more of a social service agency rather than a public transportation agency. So like when I first got here, the core area, they considered the core area military trail. So anywhere military trail, to the highest, to the most north route to the most south route. That was called like a core area. Then it started migrating west as the population migrated west in Palm Beach County. But right now we go all the way to the Turnpike. We go all the way to the North County boundary down to the South County boundary. So by expanding that,
I see.
we lose control
I got you.
of those
Understand.
trips.
Okay.
And really the best way to describe it to the board, and if there was customers here, is it's now time to try and come back to the table to figure out, later on down the road, doesn't have to be now, maybe we can look at those trips that if somebody's going from the acreage where they moved to the acreage and it does not have public transportation, but they want to be treated the same exact way as someone living on Military Trail that's going to the Kravis Center, but they want to go to the Kravis Center and they want service exactly the same.
Yeah, yeah, I got you.
That's where we're going. We're pointing to the direction of trying to give it a more real sense of controlling our costs, controlling how we provide service, but also kind of taking it back from the customers to say, we've been very reasonable throughout the years in giving it away. It's hard to take something back, but we need some help from you guys.
Yeah.
And the reason why is, like previous slides, you saw this board sets trip priorities, right? What that trip priority means is if funding, does not equal the amount of trips, which normally it doesn't because the county actually doubles the amount of TD funding. So technically we could say that there's trip priorities, but we haven't done that here. But the way that I describe it to our customers would be, would you rather be able to have a trip and instead of that 10 o'clock, I can offer you 11 o'clock, but you still have the trip?
Mhm.
Or it falls within a trip priority and now you don't have the trip. Or we take the TD trip allocation and we say, okay, we got $3 million. Every day we're going to break it up and say, just for argument's sake, there's 100 trips today. Once those 100 trips are capped, you do not get a trip. So we don't want to go that extreme. Other counties within the state, that's what they do. They put trip priorities. They put trip caps. So it's gotten to the point where we've tried to be creative in putting the U-Serve, like I think you guys heard of the U-Serve, and our choice program with Lyft, which we're saving money, but they're getting that same service, even sometimes better service. But that's how we're trying to do. We're trying to think out of the box. How can we think non-traditionally, meaning, it's 2025 now, right? Everything is not the same as it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
This allows us to go in the direction to possibly do mobility on demand, as Mr. Maldonado says, or maybe in the future, not now, that trip from the acreage to Kravis Center, it should be $6.
Yeah,
It
so
doesn't have to be $4.
Yeah.
It gives us the
But-
ability to look at it and really think about it differently.
And that's kind of where I'm going. I really want to understand the implications of each of those shifts and which one is more likely to ruffle feathers, if you will, and have people calling the board or coming before the commission, whatever the case may be, right? I don't know if you've done that analysis and,
Yes, we did. We did an actual fair equity analysis for that same purpose. So and just to explain, and I think the question that you asked was very valid. If you look at links, for example, in Orlando, they have different fares depending on distance travel. And PSTA does the same thing. There are multiple transit systems here. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to keep the same fare for everyone who uses paratransit services. That is our goal, to maintain the same fare structure. And in order for us to be able to continue to enhance services and improve services, we have to actualize our fare structure. So the idea was to be able to charge what the ADA allows us to charge, which is twice the cost of your single fixed route trip, which is $2. So double that amount, which is $4. So what we will be proposing at the board will be increasing the fare just for 50 cents instead of looking at, more than that. And those folks that cannot afford it, that fall at or under the 100% poverty guidelines will continue to pay the $3.50. So, but I wanted to point something out because you mentioned that as you were talking, if you look at the slide on the right, you see the Go Glades all the way to your left, and you see that vast area that we provide mobility on demand. Awesome services. Everybody is happy with that. But if you look at areas, it's like Westlake, the the acreages, other places south and areas where you cannot put a fixed route for many reasons. Sometimes you got gated communities. It's hard to go through a gated community when you're trying to operate them. To have mobility on demand options that people can call, whereas right now someone has to schedule in advance. When you provide mobility on demand, they can do services practically on demand. Same day, they will have an app. They're able to do that. It's happening right now with Uber. Uber is happening with Yellow Cab. It's happening with Userve right now. What's the other one? Lyft. And it's working excellent, and people enjoy that independence to be able to make those trips on demand versus having to schedule them way in advance. And they pay the same amount.
It's also real quick, just to also to think about, it also, we're trying to also have the riders think about the trips a little bit more. Right now, I'm just going to book a trip from Jupiter to Boca because I can. It's going to be $350. Just, but is it efficient? Actually, we're allowed to compare the trip from Jupiter to Boca, and we are allowed to compare it to a fixed route trip 1.5 times that. So, so if I get, Donald Ross and Military, and I get on there, and I have to go all the way to Boca, how long would it take me to take it on the fixed route?
Yeah.
That's really what ADA transportation, transportation should be comparable to the fixed route. Right now, we have a general rule to try and stay within that ADA, to try and keep them within two hours, because we try to be reasonable. But is it reasonable if we also have to pick up other people on the way? So again, we're trying to still provide those trips, but also not have the program just blow up to the point
Yeah,
where we can't
understand.
afford it. Yeah.
Understood.
So,
I just have a couple of other follow-up. I'll be quick.
no.
I'll be quick. So the first is, do you do any categorical eligibility to streamline services? For example, what we have begun to do in community services is working, like if they receive food subsidies like SNAPS benefits, then they automatically qualify for our services because that agency has already gone through the process of identifying what their income is. And, if they're receiving it, that means they've done that. And so I'm curious to know if there are opportunities to do that with PalmTran. It could go both ways, whether, if they're a client from community services, we can give them a form and they can verify it or something to that nature, and they would automatically be eligible for PalmTran or vice versa. That's number one. And then the second question is, where are we in the process of having, are we still on the extension with the vendor or the
I'll answer that
RFP?
in a sec, but
Okay.
the first question, Ivan's probably smiling inside because it's right up his alley, because that's exactly what he wants to do with your first question.
Okay.
Go ahead. I mean, he
Yes,
doesn't
and I
understand why we.
understand. There's a
through
lot
so
of
much.
duplication and process when it comes to certifying the same clients. If you have already determined that somebody meets a certain financial threshold and it meets the criteria that we're talking about, why would we want to put them through the same process? However, for ADA eligibility, they still have to qualify under the ADA, and we will be audited to demonstrate that we properly audited, that we probably ensure that they meet the eligibility qualification. When it comes to the financial side of it, that's a piece of cake. It's just a matter of us working together in the process. And I'm actually looking at that right now because we have, and not intentionally, I think it just happened by practice and probably prior histories. Sometimes we make it very difficult for social service agencies, human service agencies to work with us. And we're trying to kind of get rid of some of those extra elements that are unnecessary to work with them. So I come from a health and human services background. So I wanted to just make one little last comment. The problem with the way that we provide services is that the people who really need the services the most are the ones who get adversely affected. For example, when you have to take elderly persons or disabled persons to a doctor's appointment, and now you're jamming a number of folks who do not necessarily meet the ADA criteria into the same trip, it affects on-time performance for those folks who have, disabilities who need to get to those appointments on time. Because basically you have bottleneck everything. It's like trying to take, each and every one of us and put them in a Yugo. You remember the old Yugo type of car? How many trips will you have to do? It's going to take you multiple trips. Well, we're doing the same thing. The problem with that is that we are all here. We have a county that is massive, and we have to pick them up from all over the county to get them to those appointments. And if you look at, I call it the spider web. When you look at how you schedule trips, they are all over the place. And this person that has been picked up right here, and you have 3 other people who have been picked up in the same location, they are not all going to the same destination. They're going quite opposite. Even when we go to dialysis centers and that sort of thing, it's just, it gets really complicated unless you maximize the use of your vehicles, unless you set guidelines that help you schedule better. And as Lou and I said earlier, our aim is not to make it worse, is to enhance the services, to be able to work with folks. Some people are going to have to give us a little flexibility and understand. It's the same thing as when you use a fixed route. Everyone knows that if you're going to stand waiting for a bus, you don't get there 2 minutes before the bus arrives there. A lot of things happen. You try to take the earlier trip, if possible, because something can happen that bus might not get there on time. So the same thing comes with paratransit transportation. But Lou said it earlier. Our requirements as per ADA is to make sure that we meet the folks that meet the ADA criteria. Transit systems throughout the nations practice the 3/4 mile, which is what we're required to do inside the network, outside of a fixed route, up to 3/4 miles inside a fixed route, and you have certain parameters that Lou just went through. Anything outside of that, we need to have the flexibility to say, we can't get you there at this time, but if you could work with us and tell it and probably start, 15 minutes earlier, or maybe we can get you 15 minutes later if you don't have a critical appointment. It gives us that ability to negotiate those trips, and then we can balance those trips through our fleet instead of having that 8 o'clock where we have 300 people being picked up, and then at 2 o'clock when we have 400 people that will be picked up, and we only have 200 something vehicles and services. That's the challenge that we're facing. And the challenges are real. Every transit system is dealing with those. I think we're doing it. We're dealing with it worse because of the vast area that we cover. Thank you.
And then your second question is, currently we're in our final negotiations for a contract extension. So we're going to be extending with MV and Transdev, our current providers, for another year. So we're going to do another year. And we're also going to be issuing that new RFP within the next month or so. Did you say you're going to volunteer?
Where I can.
You can't volunteer?
I'm here to help where I can.
He was on the selection committee, so we took a lot of his time, so we appreciate
So,
that.
but in terms of, I don't want to get into details of
That's
that.
okay.
but
This is
What is it in terms of having one vendor or two? Was that the decision?
Right now, the idea was be to have the direction from our Board of County Commissioners to have a proposal with 2 vendors right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. And one final thing that I'm going to say, we're not asking for any decision from you folks today, but we will probably come back after we go before the board and hear the section to tell us this is what we're moving for, because we obviously will have to amend our TD plan.
If you do, can you flush out that analysis, the impact analysis a little bit more for us so that we at least know? Especially, I mean, it makes sense. What you're saying makes complete sense. We just need to be able to think through what the implications will be.
Brian?
I was actually going to suggest, and I don't want to lead the committee to, any conclusions, but we are required to host a transportation disadvantage workshop every year, which we usually co-host with our May meeting, which will be June. But if it's, we will follow up with your team, Ivan and Lou, and see about hosting and maybe getting at some of this data and doing a little bit of a deeper dive into a non-committee format. And we will absolutely, if the board decides that this is the direction that we want to go in, you'll see these updates reflected in the August TDSP, Transportation Disadvantage Service Plan. So
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, this, if we were to start this, we're not thinking about doing it this year, but it would begin the first of next year. So give us some time to do whatever we have to do to notify customers that there will be slight changes in the process. We're going to our Palm Trans Service Board tomorrow to go over this. On April 8th, we go before a Board of County Commissioners, and then we'll be glad to come back and let you know this is what has been, we have been told to move forward with. And, but thank you for your time again. Thank you.
All right, anything else? It's great discussion. Thanks, guys. I'm glad we got to talk about that. Do we have any other partner or agency updates today?
I have one more thing to talk about.
Yes, please. No, it's okay.
So there were some changes there were some legislative changes that came into effect, and I just wanted to bring it to the board. A lot of it, so you've heard me say this throughout the years. I think the most difficult thing for the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage is looking at rural and urban counties the same. So a lot of the changes that they had in the legislation is for some of the annual operating report. We brought the annual operating report to you guys, the quality operating report from the local coordinating boards, which means, CTC should provide operational reports to them. The planning agencies should also bring reports to the LCB. The CTC should be present at LCB meetings, provide the vehicle utilization to the TD Commission by reporting what we do. So a lot of the things that changed, I just want to bring it to your attention, is for small rural counties that really don't have the infrastructure we have. But I wanted to make sure at least I brought it up to you. The biggest change was actually how to report adverse incidents. It seems like throughout the state that some of those rural agencies were not reporting accidents. So the TD Commission was not getting that something happened. So, I mean, we report to them within 24 hours. We send them a report, but that's because we have that infrastructure in place. So the procedures are there. They sent us that. As I say, they encourage the LCB to be very active. That's one of the reasons why you're an award-winning LCB board. So just things like that. I wanted to bring it to you. That's kind of it. I just wanted you to know that there's some compliance issues throughout the state that they're trying to clean up, but in our county, we're doing a great job with it. So, okay.
That's definitely worth mentioning. Thank you. All right, anything else at all before we start to close up? Yeah, go ahead, Brian, please.
Wanted to remind the committee, and we will send an updated calendar invite. There was a conflict with our May meeting date with one of the conferences that I attend every year. So we had to push that meeting to June 18th. So we'll send an updated invite for June 18th, our next LCB meeting. Wanted to draw your attention to that.
Perfect. Glad you did that. Yep. So that will be a good meeting too. We'll all get to have all of our reports.
Have a very exciting day on June 18th.
Yes, we do. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and adjourn our meeting. Thank you guys all so much for coming.